Stardate 01192023. Welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a kind of smart, sometimes funny podcast covering new and classic Trek. I'm your Chadish for tonight, Myrriah Gossett. With me on the view screen is
Clyde Haynes, and I'm looking for a Chadish. What do you think I could find one? Maybe Craigslist? Should I open up an ad? Facebook, maybe?
Definitely Craigslist.
I think it's Laura's List.
Ooh.
It's a gig economy Chadish.
That's right. There you go. And I'm Paul, friend of Duras.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you all so much for joining us. Tonight we are going to be reviewing and chatting about what we know so far about Picard Season 3. We're going to talk a little bit about the trailers and some of the sneak peek scenes that have come out. There's been like 10 different trailers of just like random dialogue with images of characters, as well as a couple of extended trailers and scenes. So excited to dig into that with you. And then we are also going to have a discussion about Worf, who is joining Picard's cast for the first time in this era of things for our Capitan. And to do that, we're going to talk a little bit about the episode Sins of the Father from The Next Generation, dig into Worf's personality, growth, character development, all of those things. But Paul, can you remind people where they can subscribe to the podcast?
I can. Let's see. I'm supposed to remind everyone to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. All the links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you're loving all our content, please consider joining Patreon. It's $2 per episode at patreon.com/StarTrekPod. Yay! Choo-choo-choo! Phasers, set on awesome.
Set your phasers to awesome. Clyde, how can people participate if they're watching us live on YouTube this evening?
If you're watching us live, then you can just type in the chat, capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod, and we will take a look at your comment, your question, your insight. Let us know what you're thinking, respond to what we're saying, correct us or answer some of our questions. We love it when you do that. And then at that special time, you'll know what it is. You want to share your exciting moments, what stood out for you. Just type capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we'll take a look at yours.
Excellent. All right. I think it's time we jump into the Titan and we take some spicy hot breaks. It's time for some hot breaks. We've had a lot of content drop about Picard thus far. They're really getting us pumped. What did I thought we'd go in kind of chronological order of the previews that we've gotten thus far, but for our main
Aye, Captain.
But what's your overall thoughts and feelings and the vibe that you're getting for this season in your hot freak?
So I'll say this. I'm not sure. This is season 3. So the last 2 seasons, I've entered both of those seasons like really excited. Differently, but really excited. Expectations were really high. Right? So it's like season 1, like, this is John Luke. This is my captain. I'm excited. And then I was kind of like, Season 2, I got some early previews and I'm like, this is great. This is amazing. And by the season, I wasn't quite sure. I feel like I'm on that roller coaster again. So now I'm kind of like, all right, I don't know. Because I went back and watched a trailer or two today and I'm looking at it and it's like Jonathan Frakes, LeVar Burton, Michael Dorn, Gates McFadden. And I'm just like, everything in me wants to get super excited. And I know the show is called Picard, but in my head, I'm already working myself up to thinking this is the next generation. This is TNG 2023. Like I'm getting so excited because I'm like, this is my crew, right? And I'm just worried that I'm gonna be crushed because it's like, is it gonna be as good as I want it to be? Can it be as good as I want it to be? It's been a long time.
It's been a long road. Here to
I was waiting for it. I paused to allow you guys to jump in.
And we did. You caught 2.
We took the bait. Paul, what's
Yes.
your overall vibe? What are you feeling for the season thus far?
So I'm of a different perspective. It's like the first two seasons, like the first season I go like, oh my god, they're doing Picard, and it started off like strong for me, and then it fizzled. And I go like, never again, never again. Then the season 2 trailer came out. I go like, season 2, and I go, and then it wasn't as strong as I wanted it or that I needed it to be. I go, never again. And then the trailer drops. I go, season 3. Oh my god, it's like each time I'm like a cartoon character that just jumps into the pool again and again, not seeing if it has any water in it or not. And it's okay. The worst that's gonna happen is I'm gonna go like never again.
Mhm.
But like right now, I am full head first, Wile E. Coyote, a la Wile E. Coyote. That's how I'm excited about Picard.
Yeah,
But
I feel
Paul,
like
you say never again. But like would you like I think that's the thing that concerns me. Is because I'm like, they're gonna put it out, and regardless of what it is, I'm gonna watch every single episode.
But I have to
Like I
say
am.
that in order to like preserve, my sense of like, sense of like, oh, I have taste. But like I'm I'm just a super fan. I'm gonna be excited about whatever they give me. Like if they have like a what's her name? Exobot. What's the Exobot's name? In
Oh,
Lower Decks.
peanut hamper.
Peanut Hamper. If they have a Peanut Hamper movie, I'm gonna see it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see
Drawing the
it.
line at peanut hamper.
And like I'm just saying, like I'm gonna go like my mind will go, what are they gonna do? I gotta know. So like there's almost
Yeah.
nothing that they can do to make me not. And truth be told, it has like a lot of choo 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 choo.
I mean, yeah, my hot frag is it looks like we're gonna get space fights. We've got the whole crew back together. The chemistry is just like there, right? Like
Exactly.
there's,
That's right.
we don't have to wait for the team up. The team up has been happening for decades, and
Right.
like it's gonna
Fair.
be
It's next gen plus 7 of 9.
exactly.
Oh, right. Right, so how can you not jump head
How
first?
can you not be?
I'm in. They listen. They had me at Titan, okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm like one of the 3 people on the planet who read those novels, right?
Sure.
And so, I'm like, wow, they're bringing my my second ship,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
like into the screen. Like I'm excited about this. And so
Here's my other like kind of nerdy feeling about the fact that this is now Terry Madales's second time show running for this show, second season show running. He started his career working as an associate producer on Voyager and on Enterprise. And I'm like, you know what we want, like you were there. You know what we
Give it.
want. So come on, Terry, you got
Give it.
this. Like,
Give it.
I'm gonna believe in you, Terry. Yeah, I think all the sneak peeks are making me more excited. It looks like a mystery box kind of situation. But let's kind of go through the timeline of the details they've dropped for us thus far. So the first preview came on Star Trek Day, which I got to see in person.
Did you
just gonna
get to see
keep
that
rubbing
person?
that in, aren't you? You're not gonna let me forget.
Forever.
Forever.
It was one of the best days of my life. So forever.
Thank you for that. Like the one thing I can't do, I can't be there because I had to attend a wedding. And I get back, and what does Myrriah tells me about all the people she hung out with?
I met
How
Jerry
close
Ryan
she
and
was
Michelle
to
Hurd.
people.
I have pictures of me and Michelle Hurd. It's like
Hanging out at the after party. And where was I? I was at a wedding.
How many weddings have you been to in your life?
A lot.
How many Star Trek dates have you gone to?
Now?
Yeah.
0.
So you made your choice. You made your choice.
Just saying.
Anyway, back to the timeline here. So we got sort of like a lot of dialogue and we got a lot of character reveals. It was exciting. Everyone was stoked. We got to see Worf was back. We saw Jerry Ryan was, of course, in there. Beverly Crusher got a big reveal. It was super exciting. Geordie LaForge is back. And then we finally get another sort of preview of Picard looking through old uniforms. And there's a setup of like, we have to go on a good old fashioned road trip is like the vibe. And then they list that everyone's back, including Brett Spiner, which kind of gives us our biggest takeaway. And what I wanted to mostly discuss about the season setup is we see that Lore is back. And there's also a new villain who has been really revealed to be Vedic, Captain Vedic, who is being played by Amanda Plummer, which I think is an important detail we shall discuss. But what did you all think of the big reveal that Lore would be included this season?
It makes sense. In the way that, you know, you can't do this without Brent Spiner. Like that would just like, how could you do that? But you've effectively killed his character off in season 1. So what would you do? Right? I mean, they've done flashbacks and stuff before, and we got the whole like, let's travel back in time so we can see alternate Q inspired Brent Spiner. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that they've done before. This is the next evolution. Now, what do I think about it from a story standpoint? Lore was probably one of my favorite villains on TNG. Right? Like it you know, it's the evil twin trope.
I wouldn't call it
Little
evil.
twirly.
Like, you know, like hurt androids hurt people.
Hurt androids hurt people. His emotion chip was stolen.
I'm just saying, like, you know, like, but continue, Clyde. I didn't.
No. I mean, it's. I think that's an interesting point. Like, hurt androids do hurt people. Like,
Hurt androids kill all of the colonists.
well, but here's the thing about it. I think the thing that's interesting about Lore's storyline from a villain is his villain backstory feels plausible, right? It's kind of like he's the discarded, you know, first child that, oh, I made a bunch of mistakes and now I'm going to get it all right with the second and tell no one that the first even exists, because, you know, it's like the neglected, hurt sibling, you
That's
know,
been left for dead in the woods.
exactly. So and now they come back and, you know, it's the beginning of a really good horror movie. It makes sense. Like, you understand Lore's pain, and you understand that his psychopathic nature comes from pain and not just from pure evil, right? Like, we get a lot of characters that are just, they seem opportunistically evil. Lore, you understand where that pain's coming from, right? You want him to, and I think, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but part of you wants him to be healed in some way, which makes him somewhat of a compelling villain.
I was going to say, Chippy just asked in the chat, is this going to be a Lore redemption arc?
I hope not.
I'm with you, Paul.
Keep villains.
They're like, you know, all villains' lives matter. That's all I'm saying.
No, listen, I'm all for having a nice big bad that we kill at the end. Like, I feel like it's worked out well so far for Discovery. Let's keep that going.
Well, I feel like the big bad that they've truly set up is this new Captain Vedic, who, there's tons of speculation online about the potential link that she has to Jean-Luc Picard. What we do know from some of the talks and what's been revealed from both the cast and crew of the show is this is a mysterious alien captain of the Strike, which is a warship that has its sights set on Jean-Luc Picard. And his old crewmates from his days on the Enterprise, according to Gates McFadden, and is currently hunting Dr. Beverly Crusher, which is kind of our main plot point. We've been revealed.
I wonder if, in this timeline, if Picard was ever married to Beverly.
That would be interesting. There's been a lot of chatter online that potentially...
Didn't we see that they, like, when they tried to make it work or something? Like, well, I think we saw... maybe that was a different timeline. In the series finale, she was his ex-wife, right?
Exactly, the season finale.
I feel like we've seen that a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in season finale, she was the former Mrs. Picard. Anyway, but yeah, so they were married. So I don't know in this timeline if they are or not. But I'm just curious.
Yeah, there's been a lot of thought that potentially this is an offspring of Picard from
Oh,
some of his time with other people in places, and there is some revenge there. What is an interesting connection as they are setting up right that this is the last season of Picard. And this captain is being played by Amanda Plummer, who is the daughter of Christopher Plummer, who played the evil Klingon general that went up against Captain Kirk in sort of his final entry into Star Trek. So I think that's very interesting. And they've also introduced her in a similar way. There's the chair swivel. She comes into scene. Yeah. So potentially there's something there. Who knows?
yeah. Who knows? A big. Don't know, but I don't care. Head first.
Head first into it.
That's right. Like just for my hot, my hot lore.
Ooh, hot lore.
Hot lore, like lore.
Hot lore.
So that might be. I might have to make some new videos for.
I think I've always enjoyed lore more than Data. Everyone loves Data.
Whoa,
that is a hot lore.
It's a hot lore.
That's right. Hot lore.
Let me give you, like my.
I need some justification, my friend.
Well, yeah, everything Clyde said, I agree 100%.
I mean, you better get to it because I think the chat might turn on you here in a second.
Let them turn on me. Come at me, but like, Data is arguably the most powerful normal in all of Star Trek, right? Like he's not like he's not Q, but like he's smarter, faster, stronger than everyone, right? Like everyone. There's no other race that is like and if you're that, couldn't you just imagine being an asshole?
If you have that much power.
I know. Wouldn't you just go like, oh, like I'm not saying that I would be lore. I'm just saying like I could understand the impulse to be like, oh, you guys are dumb. You guys are weak. You guys I'm just saying, and now you're on some hick planet in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing, and I could just see it, and then they turn you off. Like I understand the idea of like, oh, I am better than you kind of mentality. I understand where that could lead to that, and like for all of it, Data is very modest, and eventually gets a little boring. Like I need a little grit, and and Laura gives you like the little blood sport, a little like I'm gonna kick your ass because I'm better than you, kind of like a little bully. I know that's not popular, but like pretty awesome, I think.
Potentially more interesting. Some folks in the chat are asking what happened to Lore. And from what I can, one, remember, and two, tried to double check today, was he led a rogue Borg faction, and then they turned against him, and then he got deactivated and dismantled, but apparently his emotion chip was salvaged from his body. So I'm assuming that's how we have Lore this time around.
As a person who is a lore expert.
Okay, please expand.
So basically, if you everyone remember Hugh, Hugh broke from the collective because of the self-identity program that Jodie put into him. His little segment got kind of like lost, and Lore found them and became this like cult personality kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so he promised them like, oh, you're going the wrong way, dude. You don't want to, what you want to look for, is like fully artificial. You don't want to go this hybrid crap. You want to go fully. So all these Borgs going, yeah, let's be like Lore. And so Lore ultimately started leading them to get, to trap the Enterprise. Now, Lore had already stolen the emotion chip that Dr. Soong had made specifically for Data.
Okay.
Yeah, and so what he did was he hacked that chip, and was able to give Data some rudimentary emotions, mostly anger and and after he kills the Borg, pleasure from that. And so Data gets hooked into this emotion, and he's also able to deactivate his ethical subroutine. So he's controlling Data, blah blah blah. Hugh and a pack of the and Hugh has a bit of people who have a rebellion against the cult Lore, and then ultimately they all fight, and Data winds up shooting Lore and turning him off. Data salvages his emotion chip that Dr. Soong gave to him, and he doesn't and it was damaged a bit, and he doesn't try to use it again till Generations. So Lore has all. I don't think Lore's just been dismantled since that episode.
Well, seems like maybe next episode we should potentially rewatch a Lore episode or two.
Oh yeah.
But we will see. I had a couple of thoughts for our next one.
1, 2. I think there are only 4. One is two-parter, but it's always so good when you see it. Always so good.
Noted.
Mark in the chat wants to know, says she thought that Worf was going to be the focus. We're going to get there.
We're getting to Worf. We're getting to Worf.
We will talk about Worf.
Yes. We got distracted by the lore of it all.
Yeah,
put your bat left down. It's going to be
first, you have to go with someone with no honor,
and then we can talk about honor.
That's right. There we go.
It's gradually working our way up the honor chain.
But the theme is sins of the father. Because Worf had to deal with his father, and Lore had to deal with his father. It's all working together.
We're gonna mesh it.
That's right.
We promise.
Nicely done there, Paul. That was great.
Thank you. I'll be here all week. Try the veal.
And with that segue, I think was there anything else you wanted to talk about in particular for the trailers we have this far? I'm sure over the next few weeks, as we kind of talk about some of the other characters we're expecting, we can dive into a few other ideas.
I'll say, here's what I'm curious about is what happens with kind of Riker and Troy, because we've seen them, right? We've seen them in this kind of retirement phase. We're just
making pizza,
right? Making pizza, dispensing wisdom over a brick oven pizza type of deal. It'll how do you reset that? Or do you build off of it? It's gonna be interesting.
I don't
this whole AARP Enterprise. I'm just not sure what to expect.
Well, from what it's kind of looking like is essentially our captain this series is actually 7 of 9, which I'm super excited about. And I think, I don't know, my grandpa was real bad at staying retired. I feel like Riker would also be someone who's real bad at staying retired. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. But to go with Clyde said, we left Troy and Riker as parents who've lost a son. That's where emotionally they are. They're all kind of mourning. They're still in mourning, and so and they very different than the Riker that we had seen in Next Generation, because they're parents and who's lost. And so I hope that they don't lose that gravitas. I hope it's Riker Troy of 2023, as opposed to let's go back to the 90s and but we're old. So I it was an interesting choice what they did. I don't know if it would be the direction that I would have taken it, but now that it's set, I'd like to see it, transpire.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? Am I glass ending?
Yeah.
See how it evolves.
Yeah. See what unfolds, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that the trick with me is, in my head, they're still in their 30s, right? In the novels, in the books, they're still this is really right after they left the Enterprise. And so what they do with this generation is going to be interesting to me, right? But this is what we're seeing with everything. We see all these reboots, and instead of the characters that we know and love, it's their children. And
Which
this
is
is a
an interesting
different,
point.
right? Like I was reading an article today about that 90s show and it being really about the children of the people who were in that 70s show. And I'm just like, this is kind of what we're doing. This is a different take where this focuses not on the kids of Riker and Troy. Like it's focusing still on them. So I am really curious. Again, I trust the writers, so I'm in, but I am really trying to figure out what's gonna happen here.
Yeah, I was going to bring up there has been some interesting talk about how this could potentially segue into the next generation because they do have like Mika Barton is on the bridge crew of the
Mm-hmm.
Titan.
Cool.
You have Seven of Nine taking over as a captain. There's some potential. There's some potential there, which I also would
Head
not be
first.
mad at.
Head first.
I'll
Head
take
first,
it.
David. That's
The
right.
whole show with Jerry
That's
Ryan at the head.
That's right.
I
Yeah.
will. No,
Always.
no.
Wait,
Give. No,
did you say Misha Barton as in
Burton.
like
Burton.
Burton? Okay, you just scared me there for a second. I was like,
No, not from the OC. It's
yeah, I'm like, not
LeVar
OC,
Burton's
LeVar's
actual
daughter, yes.
kids. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm scared. Like I'm scared.
Clyde, I look at you and you go, you want to be on my side. You want to be jumping head first, but it's just that fear. But just it doesn't matter. Just jump.
So here's what I'm scared of, right? It's like, and this is gonna be a little embarrassing, but like I was a big fan of Saved by the Bell, right? And so when Saved by the Bell, the new class came out, I was like, this is not Saved by the Bell. And so I want it to be authentic, but I feel like it's hard. It's really hard to do a next generation show.
Yeah, but it would be totally different if it's like there's one sort of connecting thread so we can get some fun like fan service like cameos every once in a while from some of these folks, but essentially it would be like a launching point for a new show. But I haven't heard any rumors of a Jerry Ryan show as of yet. Apparently Section 31 is still technically in development.
I was just going to bring
potential
that up, like,
Oscar
sure.
winner Michelle Yeoh. But we shall see.
That's going to be great. Anyway,
yeah.
Like, I feel like there's a lot of talk about, Picard, but what about,
Worf.
the person who he was the Chadish, whatever for. Klingon is just a really robust language, okay? Back off.
It is. It's got complicated syllables. You are correct, Paul.
There's a lot. Yeah, I think it might be time for us to have a second round of some
second round of Deep V.
Second round with some Deep V. If you are watching the video, y'all should check them out at least for our Hot Frakes bumpers. They are quite delightful. What did y'all think of this episode of TNG?
I will say this is where Clyde I get stabbed. Just as far as characters of Next Generation, I love them all, but Worf has not always been my favorite. And the reason why is because I feel like his code is so draconian in a way that he seems like a simple character. Like honor first, and and that's it. Fight honor, fight honor, fight honor. And I think this is the first episodes where you go like, oh, he has this other, I won't say side, but like, he has layers to that. Like, like for example, he shields his brother from being cast out with him. He's going to forego his honor in order to preserve the Empire. Spoiler alert, everyone. I'm sorry. 20 years spoiler alert. So I think this is one of the first episodes where I go like, oh, I really enjoyed the Worf journey. And I recently, within the last 6 months, took my wife on a Worf curated tour, and this was definitely one of the episodes that you see, where Worf gets the change. I think a lot of his change happens in Deep Space Nine, but but TNG is where it all started. So I love this episode. There you go.
Clyde.
I love this episode. If you were to ask me who's your favorite character, like that's a no-brainer for me. It's Geordi LaForge. And I think when I was younger watching this for the first time, I struggled with understanding the nuance of Worf's character. And since I've gone back several times since and rewatched it, every time I watch an episode with Worf, I see something I hadn't seen before, right? And it tells me that there's some writing with him and his character that was probably more profound than I thought. And so for me, the scene between Kern and Worf on the bridge, where he's talking to him and he's getting frustrated,
Sure.
was super fascinating to me, because that is this idea. And then when he comes to his room and they have this conversation, it was almost, it felt a little revealing. And as a member of the Black community, it felt like you're telling secrets. Like that's this idea of code switching, right? It's this place where I felt like I've lived most of my life, especially my professional life, where it's regardless of how you're feeling inside, you act a certain way at work, right? When he's on the bridge, he's thinking things, he's feeling things, but he's towing the line. And then afterwards, when it's just the two of them, he gets real, right? And that was so nuanced and felt like it was expressing so much more, that as I watched this and I thought about Worf, and I thought about, like, this is someone who has lived in a bunch of different varieties. He's outside of what he considers home, and yet he's held on to this tradition, where people don't understand, but he's also been able to assimilate. And I think we see so much growth in him throughout TNG, and to your point, Paul, and so much in DS9, is that he becomes this character that is much more than just warrior, smash, kill, black and white, always it's either this or that. He becomes this character who really understands how to live in two worlds. And so to me, there's some other episodes, but to me, this was like the jumping off point of, we're going to dive into Worf's character, come on board for the long haul. I felt like this was kind of the first episode that says, hang out with us for the journey.
Like to your point, Clyde, like Worf is the character who has 11 seasons worth of growth. That's the longest of any Star Trek person. I think, yeah, even Picard right now. 11
I was going to say, what about Colm Meaney?
Fair. I would make the argument. I would make the argument that, like, he does not. He's not a main character in Next Generation for a long time, and then he disappears from Next Generation, right?
Yeah, he does, because
he goes to Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think Morph has 11 seasons, under him.
Yeah, in watching this episode, so I don't know if I ever watched this during my original viewing of any TNG. So this was probably the first time I've sat down and watched this episode from beginning to end. And it made me wish they were working on a Klingon family, familial drama series, because I find the Klingon ethos and houses, I find it all fascascinating.
Like a Game of Thrones, but for Klingons.
Exactly. That is exactly what I want.
Yeah. You hear it, everyone, right here. This is where it got,
That's your next pitch.
There you go.
I want to know.
House of Moog.
Exactly. House of Moog.
House of Moog.
I was like, I'm into it. Give me something like Sopranos meets Game of Thrones meets Star Trek. I need it. The other thing that made me really excited was seeing Tony Todd as Kern, because I love Candyman. It's one of my favorite horror movies. So I was just like, Candyman. is here. And he doesn't look like Candyman, but that's okay. But I really enjoyed his performance through all the prosthetics. And I thought it was like I thought it was an interesting episode because when I started it, like I knew what I was sort of supposed to be getting into, right? Like this high council thing. And so when Kern showed up on the ship, I was like, what is happening? It was such an interesting split of an episode.
It was so good too because like it looks like it's gonna be like the part 2 of the Riker episode, right? Where Riker
Right.
goes up, and then it switches like at the first act, and you're like, "Holy crap, this is amazing!" When you first saw that, like in the '90s, you're like, "What is happening?" It's crazy.
It was, yeah, I was just like, at first I was like, I double checked. I thought I was watching the wrong episode. I was like, oh, this is probably the episode before the one I'm supposed to watch, but I guess I'll just watch both. And then it just kept going. And I was like, oh no, this is the right episode. Um, yeah, I enjoyed like that bait and switch of this. And then the shock of the brother I thought was well done. And then getting into like the drama of the councils. And then I think Keen said it was like, it's so frustrating. No, Worf sacrificed so much only to stall the Klingon civil war by a year. But
yeah, but right to your point, like it's all hitting me at once that you're right. Anytime that we're in that Klingon High Council and they're talking about the families, it's fascinating.
Yeah,
it is absolutely fascinating. And
I'm
I
like,
was thinking,
what makes him so important that you literally are willing to sacrifice an entire family for this one kid, right?
well, and you got to think about it. Like we as a culture get so obsessed with like, family trees and 23s and me's. Like this was this was originally before this. Like, oh, and I think the idea that we get to see his family is fascinating. And I was thinking about it. Anytime there's a Worf family like component, it's actually pretty compelling television.
I also found the nurse who made fun of the high council
Impact.
like dude hilarious.
Yeah, Impact. That's right.
I thought that was like a
So
fun
fat.
moment. Also, there was a lot of set pieces. Is like a production person, I was like, this is an expensive episode. You've got extra makeup, you've got extra costumes, whole new sets that they don't use over and over again. I was like, I'm into this. This is fun.
But I think my favorite thing is like this, right? This is the cultural one.
It reminded. Have you ever watched? I think there's an episode of like the Mighty Boosh where it's like the sorcerers are just like, if someone does something wrong, they're like, I turn my back on you, and they literally like hover and turn around, like. But yeah, I found it really fascinating. I thought this was a great. Like you said, Paul, this is an episode where you really see the character start to really get some multi-dimensionality, if that's a word,
Sure, no.
infused here, because I think it is so easy to think of Klingons as this like, today is a good day to die, or I only am concerned with honor. I was like, but how stressful it must be to be a Klingon, like to always just be like, I'm inches away from death and I have to just like love that.
I mean, to that point, I go like, I wonder, like, and I was watching this because I'm going like, oh, what? I was going like, what must it be like to just always? I imagine it's like being a Viking, like just like kill, murder, yeah, like I don't know what it is to be a Viking, so if I'm offending someone, I apologize. But like but like it just seems like that's what it's similar to, like kind of like strength makes right. That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Well, it also, to me, I think you mentioned it earlier, Paul, there's a code, right? Like what it is I think especially when I think of like American culture, there's a lot of unspoken, unwritten rules, right?
Sure.
That it's kind of like, oh, well, if you do, that was a faux pas. We don't do that. And it's especially when it's trying to raise children. It's like, oh, well, you don't do that. And they're like, well, why don't you? And it's like, well, because it's just not done, right? Because it's like, well, people will talk about you, or it's impolite. In the Klingon culture, it's like, no, there are a list of rules. Penalty is death. Yet, like, they're not unspoken. They're very specific.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to be in a culture where it's like, no, you make a suggestion about how my work performance is, and I stab you in the chest. Like, that's an interesting way. Like, that's an interesting take on a performance evaluation. Like, it's fascinating.
I think maybe my favorite scene of the whole episode, though, besides when I think Worf has his like, I have come up with a solution and I am going to like save everyone, right? But
you mean the shut up, Picard moment?
yeah, that was great. But no, my favorite was when they're having dinner and that dry ass looking turkey that Picard was carving into. And Kern is just like, y'all don't know how to season your food. And I was like, yeah, obviously that turkey looks terrible. Like, no one, replicator does not have a seasoning function, apparently. Anyway.
Yeah, it's like you can't replicate a juicy turkey. Like,
it looks really bad.
You can get a little honey baked ham or something. Like, you can't.
Oh yeah, and then someone in the chat pointed out. Of course, we find out that Picard loves his caviar. No replicated fish eggs for him.
No, there's what's the word? There are privileges to being the captain.
You know, it's one of those things that, you know, our former co-host Grant made me realize is that as much as I think of and love Picard as like that's my captain, going back and watching TNG, like there's some things about him that were a little like, didn't quite age well. And this was one of those scenes where it's like, I love caviar. It just seems like, really, dude? Like,
I mean, Chateau Picard, it was all written in the stars for him.
I'm like,
his secret funding of archaeological digs.
Yeah, I mean, like he's you know, he's okay. No, yeah. Picard's awesome, but like, you know, but not everyone can be awesome at every single facet of life.
Right. It's interesting. So.
Except Lore, because Lore has a positronic brain. He chooses not to be awesome in every aspect of life.
I wanted to kind of bring up, so we're sort of building, I feel like this is one of our first pieces to the puzzle of getting to the fact that Worf now identifies as a pacifist, as said in the trailer, which I don't know if that will end up being a joke, which is a potential bait and switch. We love doing that in a trailer. Or if that's truly his outlook on life at this point. And do you think this is one of the first instances we see that potential turn of character?
I'm not even sure. I've been thinking about this a lot since we were talking about this a couple weeks ago. I'm not even sure how I feel about the idea of Worf as a pacifist. Like, his character comes with just, I don't know, the sense of strength, and it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. You know, I'm curious. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, is he like Worf the diplomat now?
Yeah, but I don't know. I hope if he is a pacifist, it's done in a way that shows there is another way to show strength other than violence, right? That there's a way for us to communicate this in a different way, and that's what we're choosing to do. What I don't want them to do is to you know, not only is he a pacifist, but I don't want them to pacify his character. Right, to strip his character of his strength, his moral code, and what that brings. Because I think it's great that you have this character who stands up for what they believe in, regardless of what the consequences are. And so,
Chippy reminds us that Hemmer said pacifism does not equal not fighting for what you believe in. So,
there you go.
That's a great point.
But I feel like you guys ever see Kung Fu, you know, with Kwai Chang Caine, you know, walking the earth, you know, the TV show that was supposed to be for Bruce Lee, but then David Carradine took it over.
Yes.
So I feel like Worf's gonna wind up like that character where he can kick ass, but you know, that's not his first choice. Whereas as in the 11 seasons, Worf is always looking for a fight. he's always looking to like to
Today is a
rough
good
it.
day to die. Right.
Exactly. He's always looking for a fight. But now, but you could be badass, be able to kick everyone's ass, and you go, I don't need to demonstrate myself in my martial ability because I know I'm amazing and I don't need to prove it to you. But come at me, boy. And but like I feel like that's the way it's gonna wind up. Like, I don't think because he doesn't actually say he's a pacifist. He says, I prefer pacifism now, nowadays. So it's a slight difference. And it's only there for Riker to say, like, this is in the trailer, Worf goes, I'll let everyone know that I prefer pacifism nowadays. And Riker goes like, we're all gonna die, teleport out. I mean, that's the context of that. So
right. But as y'all have mentioned, and then Kuhn brings back up, is that he's still wielding a giant sword.
yeah, exactly.
What do you think are some other key moments, since y'all, I think, have watched more of TNG than I have? What are other key moments of Worf's character progression that you would identify?
Oh, you go first, Clyde, because I could go all night.
So I'll start with TNG. I think there's understanding of his adoptive parents and what it was like for him to be in two worlds. I think there is the romantic relationship with Kalar, and what that was like for him, and it was always like, wow, we get to see a different side of Worf, dare I say, a more tender side. And then and then there's the character that so many people hated in Alexander and Worf's son, and getting to see him as a father and the growth that takes. So I think early on in TNG, there's these moments where we see him. To me, he was a lot like Data in this way of going, okay, I'm not just going to be this character that is kind of one or two notes, angry and mean, and he would be more reflective and starting to have conversations with people when kind of employing the Socratic method, where he's asking people questions rather than just going, this is how you do it. And so by the time that we got to the end of TNG, he was much more reflective and contemplative than he was in the beginning.
100%. For me, like, one of my favorite episodes of Worf is in Deep Space Nine, in an episode called Rules of Engagement. And this is where Worf, like, the Klingons and the Federation are kind of at a Cold War type thing. And Worf is in command of the Defiant. And then all of a sudden, like, the whole episode is told through flashbacks, through a court scene, basically, where Worf is accused of killing, like firing on a Klingon civilian transport, and blah blah blah. He didn't do it, et cetera, et cetera. It was a trap trying to like discredit Worf, blah blah blah.
Similar to what happened to his father.
Yeah. But Worf, like, at the end, like, Cisco comes to Worf and he goes like, let's go celebrate. And, he goes, I don't feel like celebrated. Because, like, I didn't know in the trial until the trial that basically I wanted a fight. Like I wanted to kill. I wanted to prove myself in battle in a way against other Klingons. So that, and then Cisco like goes, that was your first mistake. Well, your second mistake, and blah blah. So, but like, like there's this not just a growth as from like, a Klingon in, human society, but there's also this growth of like, I'm a lieutenant and now I'm going to lieutenant commander. Like there's this leadership growth that happens with them too, that is also very interesting to watch, especially in DS9, because like now he's no longer security. He's a red shirt, not
yellow.
Not yellow. Yeah. So now he has to trust and lead versus be a good soldier. And I think, like, or take orders, basically. And I thought that was a very good episode. Of course, my favorite episode of all the encapsulation of Klingon culture is Attack the Wind with Ezri, where Ezri just like breaks down the Klingon. In basically 4 minutes, he like cuts the Klingon ethos to shreds in an amazing way. Anyway, heart Ezri.
I love what you said there when you talk about Worf kind of sitting into command, because I think when I look back in DS9, he's often in the captain's chair.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you think about the Defiant, he's often in that chair, and he has he's a senior leadership position, where as much as he was part of the senior staff on TNG, like at the end of the day, it was like Picard, then it was like Riker, then it was like Data, like then at one point it was like Geordi, and then it's like Troy. Like Worf wasn't exactly like next in line. Like he was like everybody would have to be on an away team, and like the helmsman would have to like be on break or busy or something before Worf got to sit in the chair. Like it was like it was always something. And so I think we saw a much more leadership perspective of Worf on DS9.
11 seasons, baby, and they milked it. They did a good job with 11 seasons.
What are y'all hoping to see from Worf joining Picard in this particular timeline?
It's a good question.
I mean, I would hope it is an encapsulation of what y'all are saying. It's like we've had 11 seasons with this character. We'll get a little bit of a catch up of what he's been doing since then. And hopefully it's that continuation.
So here's my question. Like, you have had people like you have Picard, who was super captain and arguably the best captain of his generation. Mm-hmm. And then you have Riker, who I assume did very well on the Titan. Clyde might know. I don't know. Maybe Clyde knows.
He's very
Two
good.
thumbs up.
Very good. Very good.
And Worf, who in his own right has become really, he became ambassador to, the Klingon Empire, as well as leadership, So here are these like really established people. I don't know if they're, I don't know if it's going to feel like. I hope they do something with it as opposed to just go back to, the TNG hierarchy. I feel like they're all going to, rather than be like this leadership kind of thing, they're all going to feel like pals hanging out and like being shot at, as opposed to like, oh, here's one leader.
It's more Ocean's 8 than TNG.
Yeah, actually, no. I think it might be a great way of putting it. It probably I think that's a great way of putting it, Myrriah.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that that we see a well-rounded, mature kind of character, and that this is a peer team up, and not him just sliding back into the kind of the old suit hierarchy, right? But we're seeing something like you said, like a Ocean's 8.
Sure.
Yeah, and I look at this and think, you've got someone who lived an incredible life. They're now retired, and now you're hanging out with them. The stories they have to tell and the wisdom that they have to bring is from all these things. Like, not for nothing, he fought in the Dominion War, right? Like, not only did he fight the Borg, but he fought the Dominion. Like, I don't know where the Titan was or what Jean-Luc was doing, but Worf has got some he's battle tested. Like he's evolved. He's loved. He's lost. Like there's been a lot that's happened to him. Mm-hmm. I don't want us to just gloss over that. Like I'm hoping that character is gonna feel full, right? That we're gonna see a bunch of full characters.
Diving head first.
Diving head first. Anything else y'all want to say about Worf, Sins of the Father? Or the trailers?
I mean, my favorite, well, aside from lore, the thing I'm most looking forward to is why they bring back Moriarty. That's all.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I go like, oh, that's great. I 2 episodes. I liked his character. I didn't love him. He was fine. He was kind of arch, but like, why? Like, is it the writers just digging in the the 7 seasons and finding something, or is there going to be a good reason? That's the only thing, because I'm really excited about it because head first, but I want to see why it's there.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I think that brings up an interesting concern that I have. We're talking about a lot, right? Like, this is a lot. We're not talking about 27 episodes or 24 episodes again. Like, in this lone conversation, you're bringing back, so you're adding the TNG crew to an already existing Picard crew, right? You've got Lore, you've got Amanda Plummer, and now we're talking about Moriarty. Like, that feels like a lot. Like, I feel full just talking about it.
And hopefully it's a satisfying meal.
I'm hoping.
There you go,
too.
Brad.
So,
Boom. Head first.
We'll
That's all I
see.
can say.
We'll see. It's
Like,
a lot.
It won't. Hopefully it's not
wait.
dry replicator turkey.
Let's fly.
Engage.
Hit it.
Punch it.
We got them all. What's Don Lewis?
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah, I think that's all I have for this evening, unless y'all have anything else you want to chat about. But I think ideally we should be back. I'll double check with y'all, but I'm thinking we're back February 2nd, which is not next week, but the week after, with another live stream, and we'll chit chat about some of these other characters that are coming back. I was going to originally propose Beverly Crusher, but we could do a lore episode. Perhaps we'll put up a poll on our Twitters.
Listen, I'm never going to turn down an episode about Gates McFadden as long as we don't have to talk about that.
No, that's the one we got to watch.
No, we can't watch the creepy one.
No, that's not a good one.
The cringiest one to watch.
I'm not watching the cringy one.
I don't need to watch unconsensual cringe.
Thank you. I've seen it recently. Thanks, Patreon. Watching along. I'm good. I don't need to maybe ever see that one again.
Yeah. We will decide. We'll put up a poll if you all want us to talk about Beverly Crusher or Lore next week. I'm sure we'll make time for both of them in between now and then, because Picard is back February 16th, y'all.
Yeah, baby.
It is coming back with 10 episodes. So that'll take us into April. So all spring, we're talking Picard. But you can subscribe, rate, and review to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, all those places. Visit StarTrekPod.co. You can also find our Patreon link there. If you guys enjoy us, I'd love a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps us out, helps people find us. We'd appreciate it as we're getting ready for Picard season. Clyde, where can people find us on Twitter?
You can always find us at Star Trek Pod is our handles on Twitter. Shout out to Karen, who helps run the Twitter. Thanks, Karen.
We appreciate you. That's all for us tonight. We appreciate you. Live long and prosper. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Go fast.